You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with college basketball. Two big games yesterday, and I'll start with MSU Duke. This was a great win for the Spartans. Tom Izzo always has his team play big opponents. Yeah, there are some cupcake games there also, but MSU usually doesn't shy away from the big boys. They just played Duke, and a week from today, they're playing Virginia. They don't need to play Virginia until March Madness, or May Madness, whatever's going to end up happening. But we got a March Madness type game in early December. That's pretty good. This was an incredibly even game. No team could get comfortable. Duke had a lead late in the first half. Then MSU came storming back to take the lead at the half. MSU's defense was incredible. They held Duke to just 32% from the field and 22% from beyond the arc. Now, MSU wasn't much better from the three-point line. They only shot 25% from there, but their field goal percentage total was much better, 43%. This is a really good MSU team. Aaron Henry has a ton of experience. Doesn't mind it if you rip into him. He's an Izzo guy. He had a really well-rounded game. 14 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Rocket Watts in his first game starting had 20 points. Joey Hauser had a double-double. He's played really well these first few games. Off the bench, Malik Hall had a double-double. Julius Marble had the best game of the season so far for him. He had 12 points. He was 5 for 5 from the field. The thing that made this win really impressive was the fact that Joshua Langford, their only senior, a guy who starts for him, plays the second most minutes on the team, no-showed. He only shot 2 threes for the whole game. That was it. He hit one of them. Whoop-de-freaking-do. And Thomas Kithier got into foul trouble, and Izzo said that was it. You're only going to play 5 minutes. Despite that, the Spartans found a way to win. Gabe Brown, too. Coming off the bench, playing 17 minutes. Missing all his shots. MSU rode their young guns in this game. With the exception of Aaron Henry, everyone who contributed in MSU's win yesterday was a sophomore. In an era of one-and-dones, That's refreshing to see. This was a really impressive win for MSU. Obviously, they're going to be a great team all season. That's what Tom Izzo does. I don't want to make any bold proclamations about them yet. We're in early December. But so far, so good for the Spartans. As for Duke, I understand that it's early. But their 2 games this year, they have not looked good. Their first game was against Coppin State. They beat Coppin State. Fantastic. That's what they're supposed to do. They only beat them by 10, though. Duke was up by 17 at the half. They let Coppin State back in it a little bit. I mean, give the Eagles credit for fighting back, but Duke never should have let their guard down. Now you lose to the Spartans, and you do so in a really bad way. You don't shoot well. Yeah, MSU played great defense, but still, you've got to be able to counteract that. The biggest thing for me was the no-shows. Wendell Moore and DJ Stewart. They were invisible. Moore was a guy who was expected to take a big jump this year for the Blue Devils. Wasn't going to have to compete with guys like Vernon Carey, Trey Jones, Cassius Stanley, Alex O'Connell. In his first big game under the bright lights, he blew it. Shot 0 for 9 from the field, 0 for 6 from beyond the arc. DJ Stewart wasn't much better, 0 for 7 from the field, 0 for 3 from beyond the arc. This guy was a big recruit for Duke. Krzyzewski counted on those guys a lot yesterday. Moore played 30 minutes, Stewart played 29. They only combined for 10 points. You're not going to win that way. Jalen Johnson, their biggest recruit, played well. We're going to be hearing a lot from him this year. He's not at the Cade Cunningham, Luka Garza level, but Johnson's going to have a really good season, I think. He had 11 points, got to the free throw line, made an impact defensively. I'll take it. His first game under the bright lights, I'll take it. The guy who really impressed me for Duke, though, was Matthew Hurt. I like Hurt. Obviously, he was overshadowed last year, but if you keyed in on him, you saw that he has talent. He shot the ball efficiently, 48.7% from the field last year, 39.3% from beyond the arc last year, and yesterday he had a double-double. 21 points and 13 rebounds. Hit all 8 of his free throws. That's the one thing that Duke did really well yesterday. They hit a bunch of their free throws. But the only guy who really contributed in shooting the ball was Hurt. I like Hurt. Has a solid game. But he can't be the best player that Duke has. He's a good complementary piece. He's not a star. I did like the production that Duke got from their bench. Jamin Brakefield, after getting only 4 minutes against Coppin State, got 15 minutes yesterday and played well. Had 11 points. Jordan Goldwire, the senior, had 10 points off the bench, had 2 steals. Got a little handsy, which I didn't like, but you take the good with the bad. But I'll tell you, watching these two Duke games, I understand it's only 2 games. How much can you really read into it? But they have not impressed me so far. They've got a big game coming up on Tuesday against Illinois. They better win that game, I'll say that. Moving on now to Kentucky, Kansas. A game that I was really excited about, but it underwhelmed. Neither team played well. They both shot under 37% from the field. Kentucky 36%, Kansas 30%. 3-pointers, they both shot under 25%. Kentucky at 14, Kansas at 24 from the charity stripe. They both shot under 76%. Kentucky 75%, Kansas 67%. Neither team deserved to win this game, but Kansas eked it out at the end. I saw some people making the excuse that it was hard for the players to get hyped up because there were no fans in the stands, no cardboard cutouts, no nothing. I get that, and there are players that feed off that crazy environment, but that's not an excuse. You've still got to play. I mean, I'll say this. Seeing these empty basketball arenas, it does look like a rec center. You do get that local YMCA vibe with no crowd noise or cardboard cutouts or piped in music, whatever. I understand that, but again, not an excuse. If I was in charge of a basketball arena, I would put cardboard cutouts in. Just to give it some semblance of oomph, and not make it look like 10 guys named Mo are on the court. But when you look at the actual game, this is a bad Kentucky team. They're undisciplined. They don't execute the fundamentals. Their best player by far is Isaiah Jackson. I like Jackson a lot. Really good rebounder. Really good defender in the low post. Reminds me a lot of Hassan Whiteside. But all due respect to Jackson, he can't be your best player if you're going to win. This is a guy who's only averaging 7.3 points per game. Brandon Boston didn't shoot the ball well. He shot under 33%. Terrence Clark was dreadful. He only had 6 points in 35 minutes. Missed all his threes, turned the ball over 3 times, and he ended up fouling out. Olivier Sarr, their big Frenchman, the 7-footer. The guy who I saw some Kentucky fans comparing to Rudy Gobert. He's not Gobert, he's not even close. The guy played 15 minutes. Had 4 fouls. He's not that good. He can't rebound like Gobert. Are you kidding me? The guy only had 6 rebounds. He's 7 feet tall. The simple fact is, this is not a good Kentucky team. This is what happens when you're so reliant on playing freshmen. John Calipari, who I have no respect for, every place he's been, there have been scandals. Massachusetts, scandals. Memphis, scandals. The Nets, passing on Kobe Bryant for Kerry Kittles. Kentucky, starting this one-and-done pipeline. I really don't have much respect for John Calipari, I'll tell you that. In fact, I have no respect for him. I mean, this is what happens when you're so reliant on playing freshmen. You need to have fantastic recruiting classes every single year. Yeah, Boston and Clark were highly touted guards. They're both 6'7". I get that. They should be a lot better. The simple fact is, they're not ready for prime time. I mean, the Wildcats do have a few players I like. I love Isaiah Jackson. Davion Mintz is a really good bench scorer. He had 12 points yesterday. He tied with Brandon Boston for having the most points out of any Wildcat yesterday. And Jacob Toppin, I think, has a solid future. Obviously, his brother Obi just drafted by the Knicks. He has potential. He won't be as good as his brother, but he has some potential. Other than that, though, this is just a bad Kentucky team. Hallelujah, they blew out Morehead State. Who the hell cares? You got creamed by Richmond, and you played like garbage against Kansas. You want to tell me those are two good teams? Be better than them. I can guarantee you Calipari wasn't using that as an excuse. Hey, boys, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You lost to good teams. No, he's ticked off. They are good teams. There's no question. Richmond is ranked. The Spiders are a good team. They shouldn't be better than Kentucky, though. I'll say that. Kansas is always good. There's no question. The Jayhawks have the best history in all of college basketball. But again, not an excuse. When you're so reliant on freshmen, this is what can happen. You're gonna have guys who, even though they're highly touted coming out of high school, need some time to fully develop. Richmond is a very experienced team. Kansas is a very experienced team. Can these guys get better as the season progresses? The answer is yes. And the same thing holds for Duke. But it's going to be baptism by fire. These guys are going to need to get better really quickly. I'm not saying they're going to miss the big dance or anything, but I don't think Duke or Kentucky, if I had to say it right now, are destined for national championships this year. As for the Jayhawks, you gotta love what Bill Self did. Convincing Ochai Agbaji to stay for another year. He's one of the most dominant players in the Big 12. Jalen Wilson took a big step forward this year. This guy only played 2 games last year. He was the best player on the court yesterday. Shot 8 for 16 from the field. Had a double-double, 23 points, 10 rebounds. Watch out for him. He could take a big jump this year. And Christian Braun, a guard, had 13 rebounds yesterday. I understand he didn't shoot the ball well. 2 for 10 from the field, 0 for 4 from beyond the arc. But again, he had 13 rebounds. 6 of them were offensive rebounds. This guy is 6'6". I really like watching him play. I like watching this Kansas team play. They lost to Gonzaga. They couldn't stop the Zags to save their lives. That's okay. A lot of teams are going to struggle to stop Gonzaga this year. they're the real deal. They rebounded with a dominant win over St. Joseph's. Granted, it's St. Joseph's, but still. They put up 94 points. That takes skill. And yesterday, they beat Kentucky with the entire college basketball world watching. Really good win. You gotta love Bill Self. It's very easy to get behind the Jayhawks this year. They're going to be a really fun team to watch. Alright, now I'll give you some MLB Valk talk. And Uncle Stevie is spending his money a little bit. No, not Real Muto, not Bauer, not Springer. But this is a really good move. The Mets signed Trevor May to a 2-year deal worth about $15 million. Trevor May is a really good pitcher. He's been a Minnesota Twin his whole career. This guy started out as a starter and wasn't any good. Looked like he was going to flame out of the league. As a starter, in his career, he's 7-15 with a 5.85 ERA. The Twins put him in the bullpen, and it didn't go well at first. In 2016, in 44 relief appearances, he went 2-2 with a 5.27 ERA. Then he missed the whole 2017 season from Tommy John surgery. But after that surgery, he's turned into a really good reliever. Since 2018, exclusively coming out of the bullpen, he made one start, but it was as an opener. He's gone 10-4 with a 3.19 ERA. He has 7 saves. He's a good pitcher. He primarily relies on 3 pitches. A fastball that he likes to throw up high. A slider that tails away from righties and in on lefties. He's very comfortable using that pitch against righties and lefties. And he likes to throw a changeup against lefties. The thing with his changeup is it tends to tail back into the zone, and that's when lefties can take advantage of it. But Jeremy Hefner is the Mets pitching coach. He knows May pretty well. They crossed paths with the Twins. Yeah, this isn't the splash that Mets fans wanted, but obviously that can still happen. And this is a good move regardless. May is going to be a really good setup guy for the Mets. There's no question about that. Sandy Alderson, when he was with the Mets the first time around, did a terrible job in putting together a bullpen. You gotta give him credit for learning from his mistakes, seemingly. This is a really good move for the Mets. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk, because that's normal to do on a Wednesday. That is right, we are going to get Wednesday afternoon football. The reason that it's Wednesday afternoon is a bunch of things. The Ravens had a big coronavirus outbreak, and NBC scheduled the Rockefeller Center tree lighting for tonight. So the NFL got bumped for a Christmas tree lighting. You gotta love it. But this is a good game. Ravens-Steelers. It has playoff implications. The Ravens are a half game out of the playoffs, and the Steelers are a half game up on the Chiefs for the top seed in the AFC. A lot of people were saying, why didn't the NFL just cancel this game? Give it to the Steelers, the Ravens forfeit. There's a really easy answer to that. The NFL doesn't want to do that. If they didn't do it for the Broncos, when they were forced to start their fifth-string quarterback, they're not going to do it to the Ravens when they're fighting for a playoff spot and can still put out a decent team. Not a great team. No Lamar Jackson. No Mark Ingram. No J.K. Dobbins. But they can put together a solid team. I don't mind the NFL pushing this game back. If they can make it work in future weeks, that's okay. There are no fans in the stands anyway. I touched on the offense. I'll put a finer point on it. RG3 isn't that good. We all know that. Huge bust. The one thing I'll give the Ravens credit for is they're not going to need to change a lot of their game plan for RG3. Lamar Jackson is better than Griffin, but they have similar games. RG3 is going to be able to execute the game plan. Not as well as Lamar Jackson would have been able to, but Greg Roman won't need to throw the whole thing out and start from scratch. That was a good job by the Ravens in choosing RG3 to be their backup. Gus Edwards is a good running back. I said this on the NFL mock draft. I didn't want the Ravens to pick a running back. I didn't think they needed to. They had Ingram, they had Edwards. Why did they need Dobbins? I think Edwards is going to be fine as the Ravens' lead running back. The receiving core is going to be interesting. No Mark Andrews and no Willie Snead. So RG3 is going to get to throw to Marquise Brown, very good, Devin Duvernay, a rookie with a ton of potential, Miles Boykin, young kid. I'm not ready to give up on him yet. And Dez Bryant. RG3 is going to be throwing to Dez Bryant. You gotta love it. The thing is, though, he's not going to have a lot of time to execute those throws. Outside of Orlando Brown, the Ravens don't have any good offensive linemen. Ronnie Stanley's hurt. Patrick McCarry is okay, but he's not great. Same thing with Bradley Bozeman. In addition to that, the Ravens have a bunch of offensive linemen on the COVID list. Patrick McCarry, Matt Skura, DJ Fluker, and Jake Rogers are questionable. I have no idea what the Ravens' offensive line is going to look like, but it's not going to be that good. Defensively, the Ravens have some really talented players because of course they do. Jimmy Smith is questionable, but if he plays, he's been having a great year. Jalen Ferguson looks like he's going to be a really good player in this league for a long time. Marlon Humphrey's a really talented corner. I like Yannick Ngakoue. He's doing a lot of the little things. I understand the sacks aren't where you want him to be, but he has a 65.4 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. I'll take Ngakoue on the Jets any day of the week. No pun intended. But the Ravens are going to have a tough time making up for all these absences. It's going to be tough if you're a Ravens fan to watch this B team play an incredibly meaningful game against your division rival, but at least they'll be competent. That's what the NFL is looking for. The Ravens players made their bed when they didn't follow the protocols. I think it's a fair bet to say that if the Ravens had followed the protocols, this wouldn't be happening. And going back to the notion that, woe is me as a Ravens fan, the Steelers are dealing with a COVID situation. James Conner's not going to play today. That's a big loss for the Steelers. Conner's a really talented running back. It's going to fall on Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland to carry the load. They're no Conner. Big Ben's going to air it out a lot. We all know that the Steelers have tremendous pass catchers. Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Eric Ebron, James Washington. It's an embarrassment of riches. But the thing that doesn't get talked about is how great the Steelers' offensive line has been. I love Alejandro Villanueva. I love what he did when the national anthem protests first started. And he's having a fantastic season this year. 75.4 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. David DeCastro's having a good season. Matt Failer's having a good season. Marquise Pouncey is on the COVID list, but J.C. Hassenauer has been solid as his replacement. I understand he hasn't played a lot, but in 26 snaps, he has a 77.3 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. You can't ask for much more than that. Defensively, the Steelers are incredible. We all know this. T.J. Watt, Tyson Alualu, Cameron Hayward, Alex Highsmith, Chris Wormley, former Raven, Cameron Sutton, Minka Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmonds, Mike Hilton, Steven Nelson. These guys are incredible. This is a great Steelers team, a scary Steelers team. There's a real possibility that while the Jets go 0-16, the Steelers can go 16-0. They've got a few scary games left. Bills, Colts, and Browns. But I'm not counting the Ravens as one of those scary games. I think the Steelers are going to stay undefeated. Give me Pittsburgh in an easy win. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that my all-time favorite Mariner is Noah.